Hi, I'm Lily Mobley, and today I will be discussing gender equality in Title IX in secondary school athletics. So as we know, the benefits of sports are numerous. Psychologist Garcia Faljeres states that sports aid in improving mental health and self-confidence, as well as reduce the risk of depression. So shouldn't something as vital as sports be accessible and free of discrimination to all students? Currently, Title IX states that no person in the U.S. shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits from, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal funding. While the original intention of this amendment was earnest, Title IX does not ensure actual equality for all student athletes. Two groups of athletes are at a specific disadvantage: female student athletes and LGBTQ+ student athletes. First is female athletes in secondary school sports. When used correctly and effectively, Title IX can be used to overcome issues such as unequal pay, gender-based violence, a lack of targeted investment, and negative stereotypes and social norms. During Title IX rulings, there's a trend to use either one of two rulings. The first is called the Programmatic Approach. An example of this approach occurred in the Othen v. Ann Arbor School Board case. This was a federal case that ruled against the alleged sexual discrimination of two female athletes. The court ruled with the Programmatic Approach, stating that since the specific sports teams did not receive direct federal funding, Title IX did not apply and did not protect the students. The other approach is the institutional approach. Through the institutional approach, states that even if a school receives any amount of federal funding, sports will still receive benefits from that funding, and Title IX does apply to the sports. If cases in the past had ruled with the Programmatic Approach, dozens that defended gender equality would be invalidated and deemed illegal. The vague language of Title IX has been manipulated to protect schools instead of the students they should be serving. Attorneys Lazarson and Wenger state that viewing Title IX as a series of threats has taken attention away from the simple nature of the mandate. Do not discriminate by gender in an athletic program, and provide women athletes with the same things as men. Therefore, it is vital to more thoroughly define Title IX because of the misinterpretation that harms students subject to discrimination. This brings us to our first proposed solution by the American Association of College Professors. They encourage immediate action by the Office of the Civil Rights to explain the interpretation of Title IX to protect all aspects of sexual discrimination. In this definition should include using the institutional approach to defend the athletes. This brings us to the issue of funding. There are some economic problems presented with Title IX, specifically with disparities between men's and women's sports. However, the Harvard Law Review of 1997 gives us a suggestion to fix this problem of funding, called the substantially proportionate approach. The Law Review defines the substantially proportionate approach with this example. If 49% of the student population was female and 51% was male, then Title IX would mandate that 49% of the athletes be female. Now, this example only applies to participation in athletics, but the same idea of the substantially proportionate approach could be applied to funding. Next is LGBTQ+ athletes. Currently, Title IX begins with the phrase "on the basis of sex." However, this word sex is an ambiguous term that does not ensure protection based on gender identity and sexual orientation. It is subjective to the political agenda of a politician or the Department of Education. One example of this occurred in the state of Texas v. U.S. This was a federal court case that ruled specifically about transgender students. The court stated that the Title IX ruling to protect the students could not be implemented because the Title IX guidance document did not specifically protect their gender identity. This brings us to our second solution from Adele P. Kimmel of the Yale Law Review. She states that if federal courts consistently considered the full spectrum of gender stereotypes and recognize that bullying based on anti-LGBT animus is also sex discrimination, then Title IX would better represent LGBT students. Title IX is a necessity, but Title IX must protect all students. It is mandatory to implement a federal change to Title IX so that it can serve as a non-discrimination law to protect lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender students in schools. The first part of the solution comes from the American Association of University Professors. They state that while the schools and education department focus on the sexual dimensions of sex discrimination, the plain language of Title IX is meant to protect those on campuses more broadly from unequal access to education resources, wage disparities, and inequitable representation. Therefore, the phrase "on the basis of sex" should be changed to "on the basis of sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation," so that Title IX more fully encompasses the population it is meant to protect. The second part of the solution comes to ensure equal funding. This could happen through the substantially proportionate approach. Because without equal funding, equal participation is meaningless. The final part of the solution involves writing a set of guidelines. Title IX must be somewhat defined to protect all student athletes, so it's not subject to interpretation by courts or politicians. This three-part solution will ensure that all student athletes are protected from discrimination in sports.
Couple of questions for you. Number one, what information did you really need that you just weren't able to find? And how did you go about trying to find that information?
So I really needed more information about the substantially proportionate approach. I saw that specific phrase appear just a couple times in that Harvard Law Review. And I would have liked to find more information about actual implementations of that approach to see if it was successful or not. So instead I had to infer from what that specific law review stated about it and use other background knowledge. Yeah.
Okay. And then what advice do you have? What advice would you give to other researchers who are considering exploring this topic?
I think that this is a very important topic for anyone to research because it affects all types of schools and all types of sports and all students, regardless of if they're minorities or not. So I would give the advice of keeping an open mind and looking at unbiased sources to really dig deep into the actual implementation of Title IX.
Thank you.
Thank you.